everyone that's watching. Today we'll be having a conversation about techniques of storytelling, particularly through art. I have with me here artist Jenna Snyder Phillips. An artist and visual merchandiser, Jenna is known for her refreshing aesthetic, graphic artwork, and signature paint drips. Her body of work includes gestural paintings with strong, fluid brushstrokes that lend themselves perfectly to her living subjects, everything from wild animals to nude figures. Her work has been featured in Vogue, Domino, and Elle Decor. A graduate from Parsons School of Design and a master's degree in interior design from Scuola Politecnico di Design, Milan, Italy. We're so honored to have Jenna join us here today.
Thanks for having me, girl up.
Yeah, of course. So I just want to jump right into our first question for you. So I was just wondering, how did you discover your passion for storytelling and get your start in art?
I think it came naturally. I've always painted and been creative from a young age. I had basically it started from Miquon, I guess, the school I went to for elementary, and I was always in the art room making pots and painting pictures. There was a horse farm behind the art studio, so I was back there. So just nature pretty much inspired my artwork from a young age and continues to inspire it today.
That's incredible. And how did you make that transition into turning art into your career?
um, it just kind of happened, actually. It's always something that I did. I've always painted, and I worked at Loft and Taylor Loft doing windows, and I always painted on the side, and it just kind of transitioned into my full-time job. The side hustle became the main hustle, and that's kind of how it worked. I was really lucky that I could keep that going on the side until it became something bigger and I was able to just go for it.
Wow, that's amazing that you're able to do what you love every day. And can you talk to us a bit more about how you're able to tell stories through your art?
Sure. I think storytelling is a big part of the process. And showing just the physical process of me, creating the work. It's also more about, the inspiration for where that came from. And that's also part of the storytelling. So, travel is a big inspiration for me. Going other places, seeing colors, cultures from around the world and including that within my art. It's it's about seeing other places and experiencing other things and putting that in your work and down on the paper or a wall.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Would you be able to share some of your favorite pieces of work that you've done or the inspiration behind those specifically?
Sure. Last year I painted a mural in Stamford, Connecticut, at a cafe called Roost, and it was inspired by Brazil, botanicals in Brazil. It's a 19 feet tall by I think 30 feet wide wall, and it's just all the florals from Brazil. And it was inspired there because I've been there 8 times, and I keep going back because it's so beautiful, and the colors there and the plants that you see there are really just unlike anywhere I've ever been or seen. So it's just a great place for me, a wonderful place to um, you know, feel inspired. And I took a piece of that back with me and painted it in Stanford. And that's the biggest piece I've ever done. Um, and I think part of the storytelling there is the trips and the travels and the culture and the colors that I saw there to bring back and recreate it here. So I think travel for me is like a big part of the storytelling process, and the culture, you know, the music, the vibrations from it.
Wow, that's incredible. That sounds like a huge feat to accomplish. How do you typically choose like what mediums you use or the scale of your artwork?
So I've worked with Jonathan Adler and sold watercolors with him, and you know, that's art for the interiors. So it's art for any room in your house. I have a love for animals, so I've painted lots of animals for him, and the scale is for a space for you know, 30 by 40, 22 by 30. It really depends on the interior and the person's home and how big they want to go, or you know, it's but a lot of my watercolors are scaled for an interior space, but the mural, you know, that's a bigger thing.
Got it, got it.
So
So I forgot to give a little bit of background about myself. So I'm currently a rising sophomore at Harvard College, and I was a Girl Coalition leader and club leader while in high school. And I grew up with art as well, and so I just absolutely love visual art, and it's incredible to see how you've been able to continue that. And I guess I just had a quick like personal question in terms of like I don't really know how to like figure out what mediums work best for me, and I feel like I've always kind of just stuck with like the same two and like the same style. So how are you able to like figure out what mediums you prefer and what's your own artistic style?
what mediums do you use that
I use
you
graphic, yeah. I usually use graphite pencils and color pencils.
would you ever consider using something a little more fluid, like with water, acrylic, watercolors, things like that? For me, that works really well because I like the movement of, you know, using water and paint, because there's a lot of variations with the flow of paint that you can get. You know, I use pencil and graphite as well, to sketch things out, and then I go in with color and either acrylic or watercolors, depending on, you know, what is the medium. So I think it would be nice if you could try other things, though. I'm constantly trying to, you know, I also do pottery for fun, but that's another medium. So I think it's like if you have a creative instinct in you, I think you can do anything. You can try watercolor, you can try acrylic, you can try, you know, ceramics, woodworking, you know, or you know, all of that. Like it's all like within your hand, the physical, you know, the touch. So, you know, I would push you to try other things, you know, if you do graphite and pencil, like go further,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
do more. I mean, if you can, like it's also like, do you have a studio and you know the space for it? But you can always go outside.
Right, yeah. That sounds really cool. And I've seen some of your artwork and it's really beautiful. And I definitely see what you're talking about with like the movement in your piece. Um, I think it's really beautiful. And I think that's a really good transition actually into our next section. And so would you be able to share a few tips, tricks, or techniques for effective storytelling through art, or just any advice you have for girls who are just now discovering their interest in art or want to get started?
Yeah, I mean, I think is it's just never give up, you know? If you have that creative intuition, just keep following it and just keep making things, and you're just going to keep getting further along and develop that, you know, talent. And I would just say, you know, there were many times when I was just like, ah, I'm just going to put this paintbrush away. I left my studio, I'm moving to a new place. But throughout all of that, I've kept, you know, painting and kept going and kept evolving through, you know, a new medium or, you know, so I would just say for girls who are creative and have that as an outlet, just keep going, just try more, do more, and see where it goes. Don't be afraid to try something new.
First piece that I have here, I created with color pencil and pastel in the background. And the meaning behind this piece was primarily to honor both my grandpa and his mother. So the hands you see there are my grandpa's hands. This is after both of them had already passed away. So this is kind of a way for me to honor my family's legacy. And through just creating this piece, I was able to talk to my parents a bit more too about their background and my grandpa's legacy. And so this was honestly just a piece for me to not only kind of cope with grief and loss, but also in a way honor him after he had already passed. And could you go to the next slide? Yeah. So this is also kind of on a similar trend here. And this was also about my grandpa and my grandma's history, actually. So on the photographs that I drew in there, um, those are like key moments from like when they met, when they got married, and just portraits of them. And also each like object within this drawing also holds a meaning. The envelopes and the mail that is located in the box were was mail that like my parents sent back and forth with my grandparents while they were still in China. Glasses are something that he wore every day. So this is also just also a piece to kind of honor his legacy and learn more about my own family history. And this one was slightly different. So this was created before the other two. And this was kind of my first exposure to social justices. And this is my kind of coping mechanism. For the first time, I realized how much there is left to do for the world and how much wrong there is around me. And this was my kind of realization that I want to like grow past this and I want to like start helping the world go to like new beginnings and hopefully embark on a new path. So this one was created with graphite pencils. The other two were primarily with colored pencils. And I think in terms of storytelling through art, my first tip in terms of technique is actually just really experimenting. And I think in the beginning, you just like how you can't fully express yourself in writing without a solid grasp of syntax and vocabulary, it's helpful to first experiment with different media, learn how to control them and use them as a medium of expression. So I want to talk a little bit more about choosing a medium. And I think each form of art, each medium carries different meanings for me personally. I primarily focused on colored pencil and graphite, but I personally wish I had actually tried more media early on to see what I liked. I found that graphite pencils are good for sketching casually or getting into details. Painting is actually really relaxing and allows for wide strokes of motion and expression. Colored pencils also let you get really detailed. And I think pastels, watercolor, pen and ink are really fun to experiment with and try out different strokes. And I've also personally been trying out digital media lately. So I think the medium you choose also plays a lot into the story that you want to tell. For example, if the story you want to tell is more of a darker mood, like kind of like this one here, um, probably like paint, ink, or charcoal come to mind for heavy, darker strokes. In terms of actually creating the piece itself, what I do personally is on like a much smaller piece of paper, I'll just do some basic sketches first and kind of figure out what exactly I want to do with this piece. And usually I'll take a couple sketches before I get to the final point that I end up deciding on. And I think that's where your creativity can really shine, of like figuring out how you want to maybe put like different drawings together or different ideas together to convey one cohesive theme. And when I create the final product, I usually draw it out first, sketch it out, probably draw in all like the little details. Like for this piece, for example, I wouldn't have gone in and drawn all like the little like white pieces, but I would have drawn out the details of like the larger tree, the person, and all like the individual people within the hair. But when I actually created the piece itself, then I would focus on like all of the little details. And in terms of techniques for this piece specifically, I went in first and did all of the dark sections and all of the values. And then I went in with like a little eraser. So you can either like shave off your eraser to get a fine point, or they have like the molding erasers that you can also just like twist into a smaller shape. Or they also have like electronic erasers now that are really helpful. So I just went in and that's how I did like the majority of the white roots that are in this portrait. Okay, and so also just figuring out how to choose an actual topic for the drawing. When it's a larger scaled product like this, I usually pick something that's meaningful to me or something that's been on my mind recently. But also just for fun, especially right now in quarantine, I really just enjoy drawing self-portraits or objects lying around the house. Um, it's just really fun to experiment with like smaller drawings, like still life. Like the other day I drew an avocado just for fun. And I think there are a lot of fun exercises to do also. Like one that I've done before is you can draw without lifting your pencil at all. It's kind of like a line drawing. You can see where you can go with that, or you can also just like close your eyes and try and draw something. Those are fun things to experiment with. I've also really loved looking up different art styles or art pieces and tried to kind of learn from their styles as well. Another type of drawing that I've done before is you try and draw yourself without looking at any pictures or any mirrors. And it's really interesting to see how you try and remember what you look like, because I don't think we actually fully know what we look like because we only see ourselves from like mirrors or from pictures. So I think definitely just finding a balance of drawing for fun, but also if you're interested in drawing like something that maybe is more time intensive, a larger scale product. I honestly think that's something that's just so beautiful about art is that it truly is open to interpretation. And you generally can't do anything wrong in art. So definitely feel free to experiment with different mediums, different styles. Um, Everything you create is most definitely not going to be perfect. And how you feel when you look at a piece differs for everyone. And I think the beauty of art is just that what you create is what you're making other people see. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Do you have any like tips or techniques that you use in your own work, or um, how have you like been able to figure out what style or like artistic style works best for you?
I think the power of repetition, in my work with the strokes, there's always, there's that, it's kind of meditative. But I would say like follow your gut with, whatever medium you gravitate towards, whether it's pencil, whether it's paint, whether it's clay, and just keep doing it and working on your process and share the process. The process is like a huge part of getting to the final product. So for example, for me, I sketch out a painting, I will sketch it out and then I will fill it in and then I will add color and then I will add black. But throughout all those steps, you have to wait and wait and wait till the paint dries. So there's a lot, it is a long process to make one piece or, several. So patience, I guess, also is important.
Yeah, definitely patience is really key. How long do you usually spend on creating one piece of work?
It depends. It depends what it is. It depends how big it is. It's really like, it could take a couple weeks, Also to find the idea and the inspiration for the piece is also what takes a lot more time than even creating the piece. So
Yeah.
that's also part of the process the inspiration.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, awesome. So do you have any last thoughts that you want to leave our viewers with?
Last thoughts for the Creative Girl Up group. Um, just keep going, and just if you're a maker, keep making. Don't give up on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was so helpful to hear about your journey through art and your tips for creating art. So thank you so much for joining us.